Welcome to Module 4, Problem Solving and Data Analysis. This topic makes up 5 to 7 questions on the SAT Math section, so it is one of the smaller topics on the SAT. This module includes 10 lessons, and we'll be working in the same format as we've been in the previous modules, so we'll be working in 3 different levels. We'll start with Lesson 1, Ratios, Rates, and Proportions. So what is a ratio? A ratio compares 2 quantities, and it can be written in 3 different forms, as a fraction, colon, or in words. Ratios represent a relationship between 2 quantities. So for example, the ratio 2 to 3 means that for every 2 of one quantity, there are 3 of the other. So let's take a look at an example. If a recipe requires 3 cups of flour for every 2 cups of sugar, how much sugar is needed for 9 cups of flour? So first we're going to start by setting up the ratio, right? Our ratio is flour to sugar, so the ratio is 3 to 2. Then we'll set up a proportion. We'll let X equal the amount of sugar needed, right? That is what we're looking for here. So our proportion is 3 over 2 equals 9 over X. And then to solve for X, we'll cross multiply, right? We get 3X equals 18. We'll divide both sides by 3, and we get X equals 6. So 6 cups of sugar are needed. Moving on to rates. A rate is a ratio where the 2 quantities have different units. So for example, miles per hour or the cost per an item. Some common examples that you'll see in the word problems on the SAT are speed, which is distance over time, and unit price, which is cost over quantity. So let's take a look at an example. Convert 60 miles per hour to feet per second. So we're going to start with 60 miles an hour. And we'll convert miles to feet. So 1 mile is 5,280 feet. The good thing is that on the SAT, whenever you have to do these types of conversions, they are going to give you the conversion rate in the problem. So you don't have to memorize this stuff. So we'll do 60 miles per hour times 5,280 feet per mile, which equals 316,800 feet per hour. So now we have feet per hour, and we need feet per second. So 1 hour is equal to 3,600 seconds. Again, this is something that they'll give you on the SAT. We'll do the conversion by doing 316,800 feet per hour divided by 3,600 seconds per hour, which gives us 88 feet per second. Lastly, for this level, we'll move on to proportions. A proportion is an equation stating that 2 ratios are equal. So for a lot of these problems, you'll have to set up an equation. You'll have to set up a proportion where you set 2 ratios that you're working with equal to each other and solve for a missing value in the proportion. And we use cross multiplication to solve proportions. So you should remember that method from middle school. So let's look at an example. If 5 pencils cost $2.50, how much do 8 pencils cost? So let's set up a proportion, right? We have our cost over the number of pencils. So we know that it's $2.50 for 5 pencils. So we'll put $2.50 over 5, and we'll set that equal to X over 8, right? X is the amount that we're looking for, right? We're looking for how much it costs for 8 pencils. So our denominator here is the number of pencils. Our numerator is the cost. So now we'll cross multiply. We get 5x equals 20. Use inverse operations and divide by 5. And we get x equals 4. So it costs $4 for 8 pencils. Please pause this video and work on the Lesson 1, Level 1 problems in the workbook. Moving on to level 2. We'll be working with word problems in this level. So here are some steps to follow when working with word problems on ratios, rates, and proportions. 1, set up the relationship. Identify the quantities and how they relate. 2, write the equation. Represent the relationship as a ratio, rate, or proportion. And 3, solve using algebraic techniques like cross multiplication or substitution. We're going to take a look at a few simple word problems. A train travels 60 miles in 90 minutes. What is the speed in miles per hour? So we're using distance over time here. So our distance is 60, and I'm putting that over 1.5. Now, where did I get 1.5 from? And why would I use 1.5 when the problem says 90 minutes? Well, look at what the question is asking. It's asking, what is its speed in miles per hour, right? We know 90 minutes is an hour and a half. So that's why we put 60 over 1.5 instead of 60 over 90. So just do the division at this point, and we get 40 miles per hour. So now let's look at a problem about earnings. A worker earns $120 for 8 hours of work. How much does the worker earn per hour? So the ratio that we have to set up here is earnings over hours. So the worker earned $120 in 8 hours. So our ratio will be 120 over 8. Simply just do the division at this point and you'll get $15 per hour. Please pause this video and work on the Lesson 1, Level 2 problems in the workbook. Moving on to Level 3, we're going to look at some problems that involve problem solving. Here are some tips for working with these problems on the SAT. First, look for keywords. Per often indicates a rate. Is to indicates a ratio. Simplify first. Reduce your fractions and put them in simplest form. Double check your units and use proportions. For scaling problems, proportions usually are your best bet. Let's take a look at a scaling problem. A cookie recipe calls for 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, and 1 cup of butter to make 24 cookies. How much of each ingredient is needed to make 60 cookies? So we're going to have to scale here, right? We know the amount that we need for 24 cookies, but now we need to scale this so we know the proper amount of ingredients to make 60 cookies. So the ratio of cookies is 60 to 24. And when you divide that, you get 2.5. So we're going to use 2.5 as what I'm going to call our scale factor. So you'll scale each ingredient by 2.5. So for flour, we'll take our 3 cups and multiply it by 2.5, and we get 7.5 cups. For sugar, we'll take our 2 cups, multiply it by 2.5, and we get 5 cups. For butter, we'll take our 1 cup and multiply it by 2.5, and we get 2.5 cups. So we'll need 7.5 cups of flour, 5 cups of sugar, and 2.5 cups of butter to make 60 cookies. Let's look at a ratio comparison problem next. 2 schools have student-to-teacher ratios of 20 to 1 and 15 to 1. If the first school has 500 students, how many teachers does it have? If the second school has the same number of students, how many teachers does it have? So we have 2 schools here, and we're trying to find out the number of teachers in each school based on the student-to-teacher ratio. So let's look at the first school. Our ratio of students to teachers is 20 to 1. Now we know that this school has 500 students. So we're going to take 500 and we're going to divide it by 20, which is 25. Now, why do we divide by 20? Well, we know the ratio is 20 to 1. So that means there's one teacher for every 20 students. So now let's take a look at the second school. The second school, we know, also has 500 students, right? It says if the second school has the same number of students. So now our ratio is 15 to 1, not 20 to 1. So what do you think we're going to divide 500 by this time? Well, for this school, we have one teacher for every 15 students. So we're going to take 500 and divide it by 15, which is about 33.33. So we can say that there are 25 teachers in the first school and about 33 teachers in the second school. Please pause this video and work on the Lesson 1, Level 3 problems in the workbook. Once you're finished with the problems in the workbook, you can move on to the next video for Lesson 2.